So I've been asked what is prison like for Billy McFarland, who founded the Fyre Festival. There's two documentaries out about this guy right now, one on Netflix, one on Hulu. And basically this guy did a huge party promotion for a Bahamian island. People were paying tens of thousands for tickets. It was advertised with luxury villas. They took a load of supermodels down there, Kendall Jenner, Bella Hadid, and they promoted the hell out of this on Instagram, social media, all these different influencers. This whole party was a fraud. The guy was an absolute psychopathic narcissist maniac who, even after he frauded all these people and got in trouble for it, turned around and tried to defraud them again, the same people, using the same mailing list under a fake name, a guy called Frank, selling them fake tickets for other events. Before I get to what it's going to be like in federal prison for this guy, I've just got to say that as someone who threw raves, I understand what it takes to organise and promote a party. And I think in tomorrow's video I'm going to do a party that I had to overcome numerous challenges and disasters to keep this party alive, basically, on the night. All these crazy things happened. I'll do that one tomorrow. But this Billy guy fleeced all these rich kids, and they got traction because all of these supermodels were going around in little bikinis with Ja Rule, the rapper, on the Bahamian island called Norman's Cay, and they advertised it as Pablo Escobar's island. Now that was a red flag from the get-go, because Pablo Escobar's long dead. The Medellin cartel were involved with this island, but it wasn't Pablo's island, it was actually Carlos Leder's island. So the prosecutor said there was 4 factions of the Medellin cartel, and Carlos Leder, he had power in the very beginning of the Medellin cartel, but he was one of the first to fall. So he was an expert in transportation. While he was in federal prison, he got together with George Young, and they came up with this idea of having a transshipment point on a Bahamian island to get cocaine into America. So Carlos Leder, when he got out of the feds, went down to Norman's Cay. Beautiful, I mean, it showed in the Fyre Festival doc, beautiful hook-shaped island with all the water is so clear and pure and blue. And you see these supermodels running around in it, and Ja Rule and all these guys just having the times of life. No wonder so many people subscribe to the bullshit that Billy McFarland was putting out there. So Carlos Leder shows up on Norman's Cay, and people are living there. So he starts going door to door with suitcases full of money, because he's a billionaire, saying, "I'm Joe, I'm a wealthy businessman, name your price, I want to buy your property." So he ran his planes there on the landing strip, wouldn't let anyone else, he closed it down for everybody else, and most of the people sold out. But the diehards, the ones who stayed on the island, Carlos Leder was half Colombian, half German. He worshipped John Lennon and Adolf Hitler, and he brought in hundreds of German bodyguards with Doberman pincers, dogs and helicopters and black satchel bags and machine guns, and they basically went to everybody else on the island and said, "Look, you either leave the island now or we're going to kill you and your entire family." And the last people run off the island. In the beginning, Carlos Leder didn't get high on cocaine. He obeyed Scarface's law, and he managed to get multi-billions of dollars worth of coke into America from this little island. But over time he started to get high on his own supply, and Pablo had to let him go. I've got all this story. I'm writing the longest ever book right now about Escobar, called Pablo Escobar's Story, over 1,000 pages long. So Billy McFarland started out falsely advertising this island as Pablo Escobar's, which it was definitely not. It was Carlos Leder's. And he got run off the island after things got exposed and it all got crazy. And this was back in the late 1980s, early 1980s, late 1980s, when they were most active. So, Billy McFarland, he was only 26 years old when he was sentenced to 6 years in federal prison by a judge in Manhattan for defrauding investors and ticket holders for the Fyre Festival, as well as selling $100,000 worth of fake tickets to exclusive events like the Met Gala and the Grammys after the Fyre Festival had failed. After it had failed and he was already in trouble and was facing time, he got the list of all of the people who'd gone to the Fyre Festival, had a guy called Frank calling him up saying, I can get you into the Grammys, I can get you into the Met Gala for such and such a price. And these people were still buying into the bullshit and handing over. I think he made hundreds of thousands of dollars off that one as well. But he did defraud people out of millions. So, FCI Otisville is where he ended up getting sentenced to. Now, I already did a video on what the differences are between federal prison and state prison. The title was, Will Tekashi 69 going to be federal or state prison when he gets sentenced? Something like that. I'll put the link to that in the description box below this video so you can see all the differences between the feds and the state. So the federal prison, people don't understand, is run by the US federal government. Every other state has their own prison system. So federal crimes, people who do crimes crossing state lines, people who are robbing banks from state to state, fraudsters. There's a lot of white collar criminals, politicians, and there's a range of federal prisons from the club feds, which are the most exclusive, where politicians and fraudsters try to get into, over to the more rough ones, which have become more gang infiltrated, like federal prisons in California. Big Herc was in Lompoc, and the guy who was my former ecstasy supplier out of LA, DJ Hot Wheels, he ended up in Lompoc prison as well. So he was telling me all about what Lompoc prison was like. But if you want all the details of the difference between feds and state, look at the link in my Tekashi video. State prisons full of low-level drug users, really dingy. They haven't got much money at all. Not hardly any of the money goes to the prisoners. Food is well, where was that? You know, occasionally there was a dead rat in it. It was rotten, moldy food businesses were throwing away. But by the end of my sentence, I was in a federal deportation. Big difference in the food between the feds and the state. So, Billy McFarland got really lucky going to this FCI Otisville, 70 miles northwest of New York City. It is viewed as a preferable prison for inmates convicted of white-collar crimes. In 2009, Forbes named it one of America's 10 cushiest prisons. So this guy deserves some real punishment, and obviously, I mean, having your freedom taken away is bad enough, but he's not getting hardcore, hard time at least, should we say. So Otisville is a medium security correctional institution for men. It's got 840 inmates. Prison includes a detention centre with 722 inmates housed, and an adjacent minimum security satellite camp with 118 inmates. At the detention centre, the daily schedule begins at 6 AM with wake-up calls and lights on. That's when the guards turn all the lights on and they bust your tail doors open, you come out for chow and you start your day. Days are made up of a series of meals, work calls, unit sanitation and leisure time activities. Lights out is at 11:30 PM. So your series of meals, in the feds you get 3 meals a day, you did back then, so you got a breakfast, a lunch and an evening meal. Work calls, people getting job assignments, they can make small amounts of money to do certain work functions. Unit sanitation and cleaning up. Leisure time activities, I imagine he's got a rec field area, he can go out, do some jogging or whatever. They used to have a lot more leisure activity available, but they cut down on that stuff. Lights out is at 11:30 PM. So inmates are allowed 12 visiting points per month, with a visit on a weekday counting as 1 point, and on holidays or weekends as 2 points. The satellite camp is way more lenient. They've got a number of rec activities: weight, cardio, horseshoes, basketball court, handball court, tennis area, baseball field, and running and walking areas. Holy shit. I didn't even think in this day and age you could still get all of those amenities in a prison in America. Well, like I say, federal prison, it's regarded as way cushier and much easier time than the state. Given its proximity to New York's sizable Jewish population, Otisville Commissary is everything you can buy from the inmate store. There's not a store you go in like a shop, you visit and walk around. You get a form, you fill out the form, and then it gets delivered to you in a sack, and they deduct the money for what you're buying from your inmate account, which family members can put money on your inmate account so you can buy extra stuff. So, in Otisville, where McFarland is, there are kosher foods, including matzo ball soup, gefilte fish, beef chalent, and rugelach. I probably butchered those pronunciations, but hey, I'm no expert on that. So, despite how cushy it is, Billy McFarland wrote to his girlfriend, who's some model, he's not loving the experience and has to take a shower in the sink. What that means is when you have to take a shower in the sink, the other word for it in prison is a bird bath. And usually this happens because when the prison is short-staffed, for security reasons, everybody is locked down, confined to their cells. So, in Arizona, you start to absolutely stink like wet dogs because it's so hot, almost 50 degrees in the summer. And we're just stinking and sweating and going around in our boxer shorts. And we're sweating so much you start to get these skin infections and bed sores that itch and bleed. But if you scratch yourself, your skin's soggy from the sweat and clumps of your own sweat detach under your nails. And because you're stinking, there's a lockdown, staff shortages, so you get naked in front of your little, there's like a toilet sink combination. You get naked in front of your toilet sink combination, press the button, you got to keep the button pressed down to keep the water spigot spurting out. Get a little piece of cloth or a towel and get some soap on it and just rub under your armpits, rub your crotch, rub your ass. So you're not just, wafting those fumes in your cellmate's face all day, because it does get really down and dirty and nasty when you can't get a proper full shower. So he's complaining that he's having to take bird baths, Billy McFarland is, 26-year-old, in Otisville, which is one of the cushiest prisons in America. He's sentenced to 6 years, and because it's federal time, you do approximately 85%, so he won't serve all 6 years. Now, even though he looked like a diabolical deviant maniac on the Firefest documentary on Netflix, he has shown some remorse in letters he's written on, whether this is staged or what, but these have ended up online. I am incredibly sorry for my collective actions and will right the wrongs I have delivered to my family, friends, partners, associates, and you, the general public. This was actually a statement released to People, that's a magazine in America. I've always sought and dreamed to accomplish incredible things by pushing the envelope to deliver for a common good. But I made many wrong and immature decisions along the way, and I caused agony. As a result, I've lived every day in prison with pain, and I will continue to do so until I'm able to make up for some of this harm through work and actions that society finds respectable. I'm devastated but accepting, and I'll use this opportunity to live my apology and become the family member, friend, business person, and good citizen I should have been all along. I'd like to thank everyone who has supported me every step of the way. Your love keeps me focused, your hope keeps me motivated. Earning your forgiveness will fuel the rest of my days. So he only got sentenced back in October. I know my first year after I got sentenced, I was still wild. If I'd have got released, I would have gone back to at least doing drugs and partying on the weekends. It took my second year of incarceration to crush that out of me when they told me I was facing a maximum 200-year sentence. All the material stuff, all the getting high, all the partying, it didn't matter anymore. I was laser focused then on just getting my life back. That's why getting sentenced to 9.5 years after fighting my case for 26 months was one of the happiest days of my life. I could see when I was going to get my life back. So if Billy has got his head down and he's doing introspection and he is seeing the wrongdoing of his ways, then power to him, you know. He should be given a second chance. But he looked like a proper knucklehead, hustler, remorseless character on the documentary when he went ahead and contacted the people he'd already scammed by email through Frank, taking more money out of them. One of the perhaps more interesting things about Otisville is then there's probably not much violence and drugs and gang activity there out of all the prisons in America, but it does have some extremely high profile prisoners. Michael the Situation Sorrentino ended up in there for 8 months after pleading guilty to tax fraud in October 2018. Shaun Weiss, convicted in 2000 of fraud, racketeering, money laundering for stealing $450 million from the now defunct Heritage Life Insurance Corporation between 90 and 98, serving a sentence of 835 years. His earliest possible release is November 13th, 2754. Why would a prosecutor sentence someone to 835 years when they can't possibly live that long? I get asked this all the time because that makes headline news for the prosecutor. They get a promotion and they get to further their own career. Two Tonys who protected me, the mafia guy in prison, he was serving 141 years on his combined sentences, and also he was eligible for parole after 112 years. And he always used to joke about being eligible for parole after 112 years. Two Tonys died in 2010 from liver cancer from his own drug taking. Published his book last year. Some people have asked why I have not used his real name. I have changed real names to protect identities and protect his family and stuff like that, and for other legal reasons. Just because I change people's names in videos and in books doesn't mean I'm making these things up. I put a disclaimer at the front of the book saying exactly that's what I've done and why I've done it. So yeah, prosecutors get these big sentences out of people to enhance their own careers. Not saying some of them don't deserve it, but people serving life in America for weed possession and chomos getting slaps on the wrist doesn't add up to me. Alright, more famous prisoners from Otisville. Shahwar Siraj, 30-year sentence. He was released in 2030. Pakistani citizen, New York City resident, convicted of terrorism conspiracy in 2006 for masterminding a foiled plot to bomb the 34th Street Herald Square subway station in New York City in 2004. Walter Forbes served there for 12 years. Released in 2018, chairman of Sendant Corporation, convicted in 2007 of conspiracy to commit securities fraud, making false statements for masterminding the largest accounting fraud of the 1990s. He was ordered to pay $3.275 billion in restitution. Wow, good luck with that. Zvonko Buzik, released from custody in 2008 after serving 32 years, member of a terrorist group seeking Croatian independence from Yugoslavia, planted a bomb at Grand Central Terminal in New York City that killed New York Police Department officer Brian Murray and hijacked TWA Flight 355 in 1976. And he briefly escaped from Otisville in 1987. There was another more recent escape from Otisville, I think it was about 10 years ago, whereby a guard was having a relationship with a prisoner and helped him to escape. Kenneth Era Starr served 7 years, released in 2016. He was the financial advisor for Al Pacino, Martin Scorsese, Sylvester Stallone, pled guilty in 2010 to fraud and money laundering for diverting 33 million of his clients' money to pay for personal expenses. And Bernie Madoff, big time fraudster, run a Ponzi scheme in 2009. His attorney requested that he be sent to Otisville for the soft time, but instead Madoff was incarcerated at FCI Butner, a medium security prison in North Carolina. So tomorrow I'll post a video about the challenges I faced, the most challenge I ever faced, throwing a rave party. It was called Orgasmic Bliss. It was a huge 2-3 day festival out on a ranch in Arizona called Bumblebee. The guys who were on the ranch were like shotgun toting cowboys on horseback. And if you haven't watched the Fyre Festival documentary on Netflix, I urge that you do. There's also the one on Hulu as well. And on Netflix it shows all these people who paid all this money for these tickets, told that they were going to be chartered there on these private jets and private flights and everything, end up just on regular flights, getting bussed to this area where there's just all these tents. And the day before the festival, a storm had come and all the tents were soaked and the mattresses were soaked and they were busted down. And oh my goodness, it just shows you the complete and utter chaos that was caused. But I feel really sorry for the workers, especially the local people. There was one woman who was providing food and she ended up having to pay the local people. She was a local person. I think she said it wiped out her savings, $50,000. And I think there's a Just Giving Our fundraiser page going for her right now to try and make that money back. It's heartbreaking when she gives her statement at the end. And all the other people who got scammed, the workers and the contractors. And Billy McFarland, actually, all the water was coming to the festival and the customs people wouldn't allow the water to come into the festival without them paying, it was almost a couple of $100,000 in some kind of tax. So Billy McFarland, one of the guys who was working for him was about a middle-aged gay guy, and Billy McFarland says, "You're my gay guy, I want you to go down and suck the dick of the guy who's trying to charge us this tax so we can get all the water in. Just go down there and suck his dick." And the guy, God bless him, he was so stressed out and so just used to taking orders from Billy McFarland. He went back to wherever he was staying, had a shower, rinsed his mouth with mouthwash, and went down there to meet the guy to pay the tax to, fully prepared to give this guy a blowjob. And the guy said, "Look, I'm going to give you a pass on this, let you have your water, but make sure I'm one of the first to get paid when this is all over." And he promised him he would be. Of course, none of them got paid. Promised him he would be. He managed to get the water in, but the festival was a complete and utter disaster anyway. Yeah. So if you're into the party scene, Fyre Festival doc's well worth a watch. I'm getting messages every day from people to write what is prison like for X. The guy in Wales, the Chomo, who was in the band, what was it, Lost Prophets? I'm looking to stuff about him right now. But if you've got any other ideas, some people, the guy who knocked out the 12-year-old underage girl, punched her in the face, I had a request for that one. If you've got any more requests for people, what it's like in prison for them, put them in the comments. Really appreciate all the support of the channel. Take care out there. Cheers.